All right, everybody, welcome back. I'm ready. Test number 7. Raise your hand if you were like, I did pretty well here. I like what I did. Anybody? Nice. Good for you. So we're going to go through those style questions, and given the time that's left, we'll attack very specific grammar questions because that's an area that I feel we can get better at very quickly, especially if people are struggling with it. You're coming from areas in which grammar is not really taught, so we're learning it for the first time. But I want to go over as much as I can with you. Remember, there are no stupid questions here. If you have a question, just ask the question. Do not be embarrassed. If you'd like me to go over a question, I will totally go over it for you and answer everything. Some of them, when they get really, really hard, it's very tough for me to fully explain it so everybody gets it. I will do the best that I can to explain to the best of my ability. Sometimes one word makes a difference. Okay. I have one student who I see privately he's very bright and he gets very upset about like getting a question wrong. He wants to know exactly why. And I try to explain it, but he's not always seeing what I'm showing him because he's kind of closed-minded to it. You have to be open-minded and understand that this is a test. It is not perfect. It is not infallible. There will be areas that you're like, give me a break. That's a joke. That's not cool. And I'm like, yeah, this is a really bad question. Or we're like, oh, there's one word over there. That word changes everything. And we don't even see the word until it's too late. That's normal. So as we're reading, I want you to read with intensity and passion and analysis, like that analysis brain that's like studying everything. Okay. Every single thing. Imagine if you were going to be rewarded for every one you get right with $1,000. How focused would you be on finding every single thing wrong with it, right? Okay. Would that focus you? Well, for a lot of you, that's exactly what you're going to be rewarded with in scholarship money. And for some, it might be $2,000 a question. It might be 5,000. I mean, who knows? Okay. College could be expensive. Sorry. College is expensive. All right. You ready? Here we go. The first one that I marked off is number 4. All right. Popular wrong answer on this test. Let's try to figure out why. So this is a grammar question, a vocabulary question. So the part on the right doesn't really change on that one. So I'm not reading it. I just look at it. I see it's the same thing. I don't want to waste any time. So one way to blank the importance of a scholar's research is to track how often other scholars refer to the research. Okay, so I am going to highlight track how often other scholars refer to that research. For example, okay, University of California, whoever. Let's try to say that name. Is it Ulrich? Ulriki? What do you think? How many of you would try to say that name? Yeah, good idea. Don't even try. You tried? You tried? Yeah, you want to because like we want to say somebody's name properly. But there's a reason why they gave us this guy's name. Okay? Sometimes I will just add letters to the names just to make it impossible to read, just to mess with you. Okay? So this guy's name is really Jim, but what are you going to do? All right. So this guy studies behavioral economics, is among the world's most frequently cited researchers in her field. Oh, it's a woman. Okay. Who knows? Indicating that her work has been quite significant. All right. So I'm basically looking for the importance of it. If I'm looking for the importance of it, my word is looking. I'm not coming up with any kind of fancy word here. Looking is not a fancy word. I'm going very simple. What would be the only one that matches up with looking, and then which ones don't match up? Assess. Yeah, so assess makes sense. Utilize means use, influence, no, and undermine is a great word. So undermine is a very big SAT word. If you undermine something, you are ruining it. Okay, I want you to think of this in terms of irony. The opposite of what you expect. Okay? So I have ruin, irony, and opposite. Now, I'm going to go off on an aside. Okay? Anybody read Shakespeare before? An aside, right? What's another word for an aside? It's also a math term that, was it? Tangent. All right, anybody get that at home? You knew that word? A tangent? Okay. Tangential evidence is like evidence that like is off to the side. It's not really good evidence. Doesn't fit. Okay. Now I'm going to teach you what undermine means. Okay. So the question is, what would undermine the researcher's study? Okay. What would ruin the researcher's study? What would be the opposite of the study? Okay. That makes sense? All right. Now, what would be ironic? There is a stream, and in this stream, we have little guppies. Quick, what's the first guppy's name? Todd. Nice name. Okay, what's the second? That's actually, you know them? Okay, so now in that stream, there are fish that are known predators. Okay, we know they're predators of those fish. So what we're going to do for the experiment is we're going to move some guppies out into a second stream. Now, these guppies, we're going to move Todd and Marilyn out into a new stream. And we're going to put like, some device on them, very small device to track them. Okay, they're guppies. Now, there are other fish in the stream. It would be weird if there weren't, right? But these fish are not known to be predators of the guppies. Okay? So what would undermine this guy's study? Yes, if the fish here were actually predators, that would undermine the study. That would ruin the study. Okay, everybody see how that works? Now, it would be highly ironic if the fish are actually predators. You see how it undermines, right? Now, the word underscore means highlights or emphasize. Most definitely a different word. Now, you know underscore from names you use online, right? Anybody have an underscore in their name for anything online? Yeah. Now, underscoring is the old school way to underline. So you're basically underlining it. So we had a typewriter, there was no underline button. There was an underscore. So you'd move it back over and press the underscore button, and it would underscore. If you score something, what are you doing? You may know what you're doing. If you score it, you're marking it. Yeah, good. You see how words work there, right? All right, cool. So don't confuse underscore and undermine. That would definitely not be good. But that's a great one to go over because it's a very popular construction and a great word to learn. People got that one right. You know what? I'm going to do number 5 for us. All right, let's go through this one. We're dealing with overall structure. If you follow my formula here, you're going to have a much easier time, okay? So we're going to start off. We're not reading the answer choices. We're just going to highlight in yellow or whatever color you want to use up to basically the end. Okay? So that yellow is going to correspond to exactly what comes first. The problem is I just don't know how far it goes down until I get to the next part. So the rule is whatever comes first, it has to match. Okay, so for instance, let's just say it's A, right? it provides a history of research into a biological process. That has to be the first thing. Now, if that's not it, and it's not about that, just get rid of it. Okay? The problem is we have a lot of sentences here. So it could go down a little bit further, all right, until we see a change. Okay, there's a good chance it'll be like the first two sentences, but start with the first. Okay, so let's see what it says. Horizontal gene transfer involves the exchange of genetic material between organisms not in a parent-offspring relationship. Okay, does that provide a history of research? No way. Okay, that's out. Don't even look back at it. It's done. Does it explain why an organism poses a threat? Do you see that? I don't see that either. Okay, it depicts two organisms. I think the focus is on gene transfer. We do have two organisms. I'm going to leave that one just to play it safe. And then it describes the biological process. All right. That's probably the answer because it definitely does that, but let's just play it safe. Now, on this side, I have presents their similarities and differences and then explains why researching it is important. So basically, we're just going to color code this. You will not be able to color code this on your actual SAT, but you can do it on this side. Okay? Now, again, I just don't know precisely where it'll start. So I'll start over here and I'll just go back as far as I can and maybe we'll catch what it says, right? So the process can have the effect of increasing bacterial resistance to antibodies. Okay, I could see why somebody would pick the threat part for B. The problem is, do you see how that answer comes all the way in the middle and it ignores the information over here? That's a problem. That violates the structure part. Okay, everybody see that? All right. As such, an understanding of how to prevent horizontal gene transfer might result in the mitigation of dangerous pathogens, organisms that cause disease. Would that show similarities and differences? Absolutely not. But it definitely would show why researching it would be important. So it'd have to go with D. Okay, everybody see that? Is that good? All right. Anybody have any questions at home? Okay. If you do, feel free to chime in. All right. Let's keep moving down to the next one that people struggled with. There's definitely something coming up that I remember that I said, all right, here it is. Okay. So many people get this one wrong. And the reason is we're not finding the claim and then giving something that really shows a support for the claim. Now, this is part of something called command of evidence. Now, command of evidence means we're going to take information and we're going to move it over into the answers. The one that does this best is the answer. Okay, that makes sense? Sounds good? Okay, here we go. A student is writing a research paper on the history of irrigation in the southwestern United States, situating the development of Lake Sabrina, a man-made body of water created by whatever county in California in 1908, in a larger historical context. In order to emphasize irrigation's importance, the student claims that irrigation is humanity's principal use of water. So this is the key, I think. What does principal mean? Top choice, most important, right? Now, a principal in a school is the number one person in the school. Now, we also have the word principal, which is basically like values, okay? A little different. So let's see, which one shows that it's humanity's like primary use of water? Number one use. The first known irrigation system was built in the 7th century CE by whoever, a native population in the American Southwest that inhabited central Arizona. Roughly 70% of the world's water withdrawals from sources such as rivers, lakes, and aquifers is for irrigation water used to meet various agricultural demands. That looks like it's the majority, right? That would kind of show the principle. That's probably it. Today, many areas of the southwestern United States utilize sprinkler irrigation systems, which require machinery that can spray water in all directions. I don't like that one. The irrigation system developed by these people in the 7th century CE in what is now known as central Arizona is simple but applied hydraulic engineering design features that are still used today. People are going to pick this one, and 15% of people pick this because it gives like the historical part, humanity's history. But what does the answer have to be? Just based on the fact that it's the principal use of water. What do you think? Principal use. Number one use. It's got to be B, right? Good. All right. Anybody have any questions? Okay. If you do not hesitate to stop me. All right. Let's go to this one. Again, we're going to support the hypothesis. So we have to use evidence. It's a command of evidence question. So the test makers love to put you in a position in which you have to do more than one thing at once. You are allowed to have paper. I would bring a pen and a pencil to my test because you need paper. On something like this, you want to mark it down if you are a visual learner. Some people aren't. Some people don't need it. It helps me a lot to mark things up. Granted, I'm a lot older than you. I grew up with paper. I transitioned to the computer, right? You have grown up almost, predominantly using like MacBooks and stuff, right? So maybe the writing on paper doesn't matter for you, but it could help. Here's why. Let's pull out the facts, okay? So look very closely and highlight along. The Arapaho language in the Plains region in the United States has 16 vowel and consonant sounds. In contrast, the Hadza language of Eastern Africa has 70. So immediately I'm thinking, okay, United States is 16, Eastern Africa is 70. Why would languages differ in this way? One researcher has hypothesized that when modern humans arose in Africa, they spoke a single language, but as humans gradually spread throughout Africa and then around the globe, the language developed into new languages. Those developed into still more languages as small bands of humans spread even farther, with each new language retaining fewer sounds from humanity's original language. And now I'm going to stop and I'm going to process. Think for a second. Can you visualize what's happening here? If we're in Africa and Africa has 70 and we're going all the way over to the United States that has 16, that's pretty far. So if I take like another place, say I take New York, how many would New York have? Just what number would it be based on this ratio? 20? Right? Just given the location. Right now, I'm just processing this information so that I can take my idea over. I can't stress this enough. You have to think before you go to the answers. You are all very bright, but when it comes to actually doing it on your own and believing in yourself, that's the hardest part. When you're a teenager, especially, you can't, it's hard, to just naturally have that level of confidence. I'm telling you, it's in you. It lies dormant. Awaken it so you can do it. What I just did is not brain science. It's pretty straightforward. If it's in Africa, I know where Africa is. I've seen a globe. It's far away. It gets, the vowels, the consonants get less. So if I'm in Italy, it will have far more vowels than the language in the plains, right? I don't know the number, but it has to have more. See, I'm just thinking, I'm letting my brain do the work. Now I go over. Let's look at A, okay? So languages that emerged in northwestern North America tend to have more sounds than languages that emerge in East Asia do, even though northwestern North America is farther away. No, it goes against what we said. Languages that emerged in Eastern Europe tend to have more sounds than languages that emerged in East Asia do, and Eastern Europe is closer to Africa than East Asia is. Okay, I like that. That makes sense because this is closer, this is farther away, so it should have more. That's probably the answer. Now I'm going to go over to C. Languages that emerged in Western Europe tend to have fewer sounds than languages that emerged in East Asia do. And Western Europe is closer. But Western Europe is closer, so it wouldn't have fewer. It has to have more. You see how, like, even after we know the answer, it, like, still messes with us, right? There's too many locations. So what I would do is I would have on my paper, I'd be like drawing arrows, dots, or something like that. Languages that emerge in Southeast Asia tend to have more sounds than languages that emerged in East Asia do, even though the two regions are roughly the same distance. It's not about the distance that way. It's not the same. Okay, has to be B. Everybody understand that? Okay, now, if you got this one wrong, which I know is a lot of you, very common. I'm looking at the findings, okay? 13, 15, that's 28, 28 and 17. That's a huge percentage of people who got this wrong. About 47% of all my test takers have gotten this question wrong. That's a lot, okay? So think, what led me to get this one wrong? What did I do when I was in the test that I can change? Maybe highlighting helps. Maybe writing it down, right? Maybe just looking for what's wrong. Try to find that to help you, okay? All right, let's go to the next one. All right. This one is an oldie but a goodie. Very hard question. It comes down to the question itself. Sometimes you're looking at this and you're like, come on. This one feels like a come on question. Let me show you why. The text strongly suggests what about Sleep No More's use of its performance space? So your answer needs to be about the space, the actual performance space. Okay, very important. Doing exactly what we're told. So here we go. The most recent iteration of the immersive theater experience, Sleep No More, which premiered in New York City in 2011, transforms performance space, a 5-story warehouse, into a 1930s-era hotel. Audience members who wander through the labyrinthine venue, they're wandering through the venue. If you don't know what labyrinthine is, just skip it over. But they're wandering. If they're wandering, what does it imply? It's really big and a lot of space in it, right? But do you know what a labyrinth is? You know what's a labyrinth? A giant maze. You know that too? So if I add I-N-E, I'm saying it's like a giant maze. So it's a gigantic maze-like venue. Okay, that makes sense? At their own pace and follow the actors as they play out simultaneous interweaving narrative loops, confront the impossibility of experiencing the production in its entirety. The play's refusal of narrative coherence thus hinges on the sense of spatial fragmentation that the venue's immense and intricate layout generates. So now I highlighted that because I have to talk about the actual performance space. So the place is so big that it divides things up. Okay? Now, it is in New York City, and it's a giant warehouse. Okay, so I got that. So now, let's look at A. A, 23% of people pick A. The choice of a New York City venue likely enabled the play's creators to experiment with the use of theatrical space in a way that venues from earlier productions could not. Okay, I like this answer, but it's wrong. The reason why it's wrong is because the focus is not on the actual performance space, but on the choice of New York City, not the actual performance space. That's why that one's wrong. That's a very, very tricky question. Now, B talks about audience members, so that one's out. Okay. C says the production's dependence on a particular performance environment, that's close, would likely make it difficult to reproduce exactly in a different theatrical space. That's the actual performance space. It would be tough. It's a giant warehouse with like different rooms. Would that be easy to reconstruct? No. So that will be our answer. But let's take a look at D and try to figure out why it would not be the answer. All right. Again, the focus is on audience members. There's not enough about the performance space here to justify that being an answer. So we're going to get rid of that one. Now, if I was stuck between A and C, man, this is a tough one. I have to reason it out. And I reason it out by proving answers wrong. So why is A wrong? Well, the focus is on the New York City venue. And while it's very close to a good answer, it's not the right answer because the performance space is the focus, is performance environment, same thing, of C, whereas the location in New York City is the focus, which would eliminate A. That's a hard question. How many of you found that to be pretty challenging? I know I do. All right, hope that helped with that one. Grammar was pretty good here on this one, which is awesome. Some of the scores, which is phenomenal. Okay, I didn't see any more problems. I don't think I would have marked it. But are there any questions anybody wants to go over on Module 1? Anybody have any questions? Anybody at home? Any questions on Module 1? All right, well, some of these scores were phenomenal. I keep on saying it. Good for you. Really, good for you. Let's go to Module 2. Now, Module 2, by default, will be harder, especially, if you do well. The goal is to get as many right as humanly possible in Module 1 because it completely sways your score. If you don't do well on Module 1 or you miss even 1 or 2 questions, you're not missing 10 points or 20 points. That could be 40 to 50 to 60 points. Okay, Module 1 weighs 1.5 to 2 times Module 2. Okay, it's huge. All in Module 1. All right, let's go over here. This one, I have to tell you, I've given out this test a lot. All right, I've done this for a very long time. And I'm going to tell you right now, for number 2, way under 50% of students have got this right. Okay, so just going through their percentage, 42% got it right. Okay. Now, why is this such a hard question? It's because we're not looking at the word they give us as a thing. We're looking at it as an action. Okay, so that's why people don't get it. But let's talk about what happens. The Nobel Foundation gives out 5 prizes annually. Nobel Prizes, in accordance with benefactor and namesake Alfred Nobel, honor those who, during the preceding year, have conferred the greatest benefit to humanity. Nobel's blank reference 5 categories: physics, chemistry, physiology, or medicine, literature, and peace. The latter is awarded to the person who has done the most or best to advance fellowship among nations, the abolition or reduction of standing armies, and the establishment and promotion of peace congresses. So tell me, what would reference 5 categories? Well, would a will, Nobel's will? Well, a lot of people don't view that as literally his will and testament. It's like document. So they get it wrong. So they go with an answer like his stature because he was important. But you have to question this. Could Nobel's stature reference 5 categories? No, it doesn't make sense. So you always have to plug back in. I can't stress it enough. Read it back. Because if you're like, well, I know it's not temperament and I know it's not graft, well, stature doesn't make sense, so it has to be will. Sometimes we come to the answer by default because we're proving answers wrong. Remember, prove answers wrong. Tough question. All right, we had a request for number 4. All right, now, you ready? Okay, so number 4, you went with unequivocal or recurrent? Recurrent. Okay, now let's go through this and figure out what would work here. Writer Lydia Davis observed that while traditional literary forms, such as the novel, are recognizable as such, even as they evolve, there are rarer intergeneric forms that might, for example, use elements of both fiction and essays to create something. What? Something blank. Just say blank, okay? Then we're going to look for the answer. The late period pieces of James Tate arguably fit this description since they straddle the line between prose and poetry, which means if it fits the description, this is the description. It's not prose and it's not poetry, so it's in between. So which word would fit with in between? It has to be unclassifiable. Now, recurrent means it's going to happen again. Okay? So that wouldn't work if we plug it back in. Orthodox means very strict. Okay? Make sense? Right? Okay. Nice. Let's go to number. Stop me if you want me to go do one of them, okay? Don't hesitate. I'm just highlighting the ones that I know people got wrong. All right, 13. All right, let's see what happened here. You know what? Not terrible. Let's go back to that if we have time. I think it was 15. Yeah, 15 is hard. Okay. This is another one in which we have to write stuff down. If you can't write it down, I would find something on a wall and use it as like a timeline. Okay, and I'll explain to you what I mean in a second. So now, we're going to use a highlighting, and highlighting is going to help us with logic. So we're going to color code line 1, line 2, wow, that's a long sentence. Okay, line 3, line 4. Okay, now, what we're doing here by color coding is making sure that each individual sentence stands out. Yes, this could take you a little bit of time, but it is invaluable when you practice. The Bronze Age in Britain lasted from around 2500 BCE to approximately 700 BCE. Now, that's weird. It's going backwards. Let's just draw a timeline. We're going to go here. we have 2,500, and then we have all the way down to 700. I'm going backwards because it's BC. Okay, everybody see that? The test makers are really smart. We think forward, but we're going forward, but we're really going backwards. That's very confusing. All right, let's look at green. Collections of metal items called hoards from all periods of the Bronze Age have been found in Britain, including the whatever hoard of artifacts from the 16th century BCE. So that's 1500s. So I'm going to put that right like over here. Okay. So that's going to be my LL1. Unearthed around 1982. That's thrown in there to mess you up. They want you to think of more dates. Confusing, right? Okay. And the much later Horse Hope Craig hoard of artifacts from the 7th century BCE. So that's the HC right here, okay? Right in that range. So that was found around 1865. So now the later one is found in 1865, which is really earlier than 1982, and your head is spinning. Correct? Okay, they know what they're doing. Sometime in the Middle Bronze Age, approximately from the 14th century BCE to the 10th century BCE, metalsmiths in Britain began to develop swords for the first time. All right, so this is, so the 14th century. Would that be before or after the LL1? That would be like over here, right? Okay. And then 10th century would be like in here. So somewhere in here, that's when they started to make swords. Okay. All right. This fact helps explain why, whereas evidence of sword production was found in, which one would definitely have sword production? What do you think? Anybody at home? Which one has to have, like, would have sword production? You got it. This one would have the swords. Okay. This one would not have swords because swords weren't invented yet. All right. That makes sense? Okay. Now, do you understand why writing it down really helps? Okay. If you can't write it down, just look up, like find something, the top of the computer screen or something on the ceiling, right? A wall end to a wall end, and just picture it out and use it that way. That's a great tip that you could use. So what does it help to explain? Well, we found swords in the Horse Hope Craig hoard, but not in the other one. So the word latter means later. So former means before, and latter equals later. So the later one would be this one, but that's refined short. So that means that they did find some there. That's why so many people pick this one. They don't see the word refined. 32% of people pick that one. So that one's out. But that's tricky, okay? Do you see what I mean by one word can make a difference? Okay, now, hoards discovered before 1865. No such evidence was found in hoards that were discovered later. That doesn't really use the evidence at all. I don't like that one. That doesn't make sense anyway. All right. The LL1, in the LL1, no intact swords were found among the items, but they're swords. But what are the swords? Not intact. That means there are swords, but they're not together. Why is that wrong? Because there were no swords then. So by default, we come to D. That's exactly what we found. Now, you have the ability to do this on your own, and you have to trust me that you have to do it on your own. Come up with the answer to the best of your ability. It doesn't have to be perfect, but you have to think. You have to use your brain, and then use your gut as the anchor and match up the answer choices against it. You will have great success on questions like this if you do that. If you go in blindly, you're going to have a little bit of trouble. Remember, these test makers are geniuses. They're evil geniuses. They sit around a table and come up with ideas on ways to trick people like you. That's hard. We must fight them. We must win. And the only way to do that is to outsmart them. Okay? Try it. It's hard, but try it. All right. Here we go. You ready? Let's do some grammar. Oh, somebody requested this one. Who requested number 16? Module 2, 16.
I
Anybody?
did.
All right. You want to work on it with me?
Sure.
Okay, you ready? So whenever you see this, okay, we're going to highlight this up to the blank. Now, this is not a complete sentence. So this information will highlight the subject, which has to be the thing that the yellow is talking about. Be very specific to the thing. What is the only answer that has a thing that could be home to roughly 710,000 people?
The city of Rica.
That's it. So that's got to be your answer. Okay. Now
Okay.
remember, we have to do subject to verb. Okay. So this would be a subject, this would be a verb, but this would be like backwards, like home to roughly 710,000 people contained within the city. We know we need the city. So that's out. Of Latvia's, that's out. An impressive 35%, that's out. It has to be the thing that we're talking about at the very beginning. Okay? Make
Okay.
sense?
Thank you.
Very welcome. Now, anytime you see the grammar, please highlight. It's very simple and it will focus you. Don't make this harder. Use technology to help you. We're going to highlight yellow over to here, or whatever color you want to use, and highlight blue over to here, or whatever color you want to use. Now in the yellow, I'm very simply trying to find subjects and verbs because at all times I am anticipating two sentences. Okay? Anticipate two sentences. If it's not, all right, good. I figured it out, but a lot of times there are. The size of bird eggs varies widely across species. Okay? So what varies widely? The size of bird eggs. That's definitely an independent clause. So I'm definitely good to go there. That's a sentence. Now it starts off with a comma and then an and. So that means that I am going to hit another subject. Okay. And I know that because my fanboys, for, and, nor, but, or, yet, so, are essentially locked in as the only ways that I can put sentences together, but I have to use a comma before them. Okay, so it'll be like subject, verb, subject, verb. Now, if I have a subject here, I have to have a verb later. So if you look closely, what do you see right after the researchers? A comma. So that means that I have to go find the other comma, which is here. And I'm definitely right. That's a verb. So how can I make the information in here omittable? The only way for me to do that is to use the choice that has the ing. using. This is called a participle. It's a verb plus ing that becomes an adjective. If the word is used as a noun, it'll be the subject of the sentence, like the thing you're doing. That is a gerund, and a gerund is a noun. The test loves participles. You could hear it if I read it back to you. The size of bird eggs varies widely across species, and the researchers, hear my voice? And the researchers, using computer imaging to compare the lengths of eggs from species like whatever. You hear what I'm doing, right? So my voice changes. I can't use to use, which is an infinitive. I can't use used because then I have a verb and a subject and one comma between. That's a no-no. And use is the same thing as used. Can't do that either. Okay? That makes sense? All right? We have to look at those commas, find the subject and verb pairings. You'll get them right every time if you do. All right, another problem. Okay, this is where the problems come from, which is pretty impressive because the reading's really hard. Okay, so let's go this way. And wow, that's a lot of information. Okay, so I'm telling you right now, that's a lot of information. My gut's telling me 2 full sentences. I'm always looking for 2 full, but my gut's telling me because there's so much information there. All right, featuring works by the photographers whoever and whoever. Here's my subject. The 2021 exhibition, The New Woman Behind the Camera, set out to provide a wide-ranging overview of photography by women in the 1920s through the 1950s. Okay. Definitely an independent clause, correct? Okay, now I'm going to look for another independent clause. Given the collection's breadth of more than 120 photos, its efforts were largely successful. Does anybody see the verb in the blue? Anybody see verb in blue? Very good. The verb is were. Were is a verb. It's a state of being verb. What were largely successful? It's efforts. You can't cross over. Okay? You can't cross over the comma. That means that I have a sentence. This means that I need to go with the coordinating conjunction because this is a fused sentence and this is a comma splice, and this one, of course, is missing the comma. So please anticipate 2 sentences. If there's not 2 sentences, you'll get it right because you found that there are not 2 sentences. If you're anticipating 2 sentences, you'll get it right because you're looking for the subjects and verbs. All right, here's another one. All right, same deal. In the 2019 study of butterfly diversity, researcher, whoever and her colleagues, subject, counted verb. Okay. Now, I have including one specimen. That's the participial phrase again, okay? Now, this is where basic rules come into effect that you may not, be used to. Most people are going to think, oh, I got to put a comma or I have to make it 2 sentences. Let's see what happens here, okay? Including one specimen of the species, whatever. Okay, now your answer is going to be no comma. And the reason is we use commas to separate information. We use semicolons to separate independent clauses. We use colons to show equality between items, but it's a definitive stop. and we use commas to stop. Well, to pause, excuse me, like to separate. So now, here we go. I funnel this under title name. So title name means there's no stop. It just flows. Species, whatever. Okay? When you go to the doctor, you're not like, doctor. Your voice rises up to the comma and then drops down and says the person's name. It's just title name. Okay, that makes sense? So your answer has to be A. It's the only one that flows. And you're just don't stop it unless you have to. Okay? If it was B or C, you would have to have another, sentence after that. A lot of people are going to pick C because of the colon, because they're like, oh, it's species, and then I'm defining the species. We don't want to do that. All right, here's another one. All right, so I'll just make it easier for you. Definitely a verb, definitely a subject. All right, so this person composed many lists. So I have nothing, or I have the word in. So I'm still looking for subjects and verbs first, and then I'm going to go back over it. So let's try to scan this and look for subjects and verbs. That's it. That's got to be it. Okay. Now, I put a V over appears. You're going to put an S over which. However, this is a dependent clause because the word which is things that have lost their power. It's dependent on what came before it. Does that make sense? Okay. So now, this doesn't count. We don't need it. I don't think that I could just choose choice A because that would be weird. This won't work. And that's not going to work. I need the word in. In things that have lost their power, she bemoans boats. That's got to be it. Okay. So now I found the information. I got to work it back. Now notice how I have to concentrate to explain that and do it so that I didn't make a mistake. Because a lot of people are going to pick an incorrect answer on this one because they're burying the information out over here. Look for the subject verb pairings at the end. Okay? You'll find them if you look. Oh, another one. All right, here we go. A little bit of highlight and a lot of highlight. Okay, when they, that, it, or this debuted. So my question is, what debuted? What specific thing or things debuted? The artworks. Very, very creative of the test makers to say women of clay and then artworks. Because how many people are going to look at women of clay as one thing and then pick the word it, or at least a singular, right? So you have to use the word artworks. This is called pronoun antecedent agreement. It's going to bring you back to the word here, which has to be they. All right. There's a whole worksheet on pronoun antecedent agreement on the Google Classroom if you want to practice that with an answer key. It's really good. And if you need help, just reach out to me. I'll show you where it is. All right. So good news. I think that was it. All right. That was it. The majority of the issues came from the grammar again. If that's something you're struggling with, you need to practice grammar. I moved my videos on the basis of grammar to the Google Classroom. Did everybody see it? Okay. If you haven't seen it, please check for it. It'll be under where it says materials or English supplemental materials. Watch those videos, take notes on them. I have lots and lots of extra grammar stuff for you. If you need more, just contact me and I'll make something else for you. Okay. If you have any questions, do not hesitate to reach out to me. Thank you very much. Have a great night. Okay. Bye, guys. Good night, guys.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. Take care. Bye, guys.